It's been a lively show. First, you had me questioning whether or not snakes had hearts based upon the fact that I'd never seen one on a menu.
Which was odd.
As if people would ever order raccoon heart if it were on a menu, or skunk heart if it were on a menu. Then maybe the call of the best call in the 11 years that we've worked together came from Joanne and E-Course.
It's like an oily massage in there.
Shut up. I'm not even big. Shut up. I'm older. You watch your mouth.
What did I do?
She lit you up.
Got scolded.
Yes. Joanne, Gator, we were talking about the fact that Kang happens to have a new wallet that it was given to him as a gift, and he is struggling breaking in the new wallet, which is an underrated guy problem. And Joanne called up and said, wallet, we got to break in bras. And then Gator started with well, how do you break one in? Do you oil it up like a baseball glove? And Joanne wasn't having it.
Joanne was on to you, Gator, right from the start.
Right from the beginning. She wasn't putting up with your crap.
I don't think Gator's recovered.
I don't know.
Are you under the tent?
Yeah, I think I am. I don't know how to react to that. You know, I appreciate her spunk. I'm torn between trying to make fun of her and just being respectful.
I just got an email saying Gator got pancaked.
And I like pancakes.
Anyway, 248-539-9797 coming up at 12:20. Major League Baseball, a rule change that's probably going to be put in place, and I'm not sure baseball fans, the hardcore crowd's going to like it. Let's get back to your open line calls. Paul's in Chesterfield, and he's on 97.1. Hi, Paul. Paul, are you there? Do we have Paul?
Paul?
No good. 248-539-9797. Gator, the other thing that we were discussing earlier in the program is whether or not anybody's picking against New England. There's a belief that the Patriots have the worst defense amongst the four. It's not a terrible defense. They've given up the most points of the four defenses, but they're still top 10 in points allowed. But they're 29th in total defense. The other two, I think,
in terms of yards allowed.
And I think the other two are 1, 2, and 4.
Yes.
And, obviously this is the type of thing that people would say, well, they still got a pretty good defense. But if the cliche is defense wins championships, and yet almost everybody's picking Brady. They're picking the quarterback. We're looking for people who are legitimately not picking New England to win this thing. Legitimately think that somebody else is going to be holding the Lombardi Trophy 2 weeks from Sunday in Minnesota. 248-539-9797. All right, I think we got Paul. Paul, you're up.
Hey, how are you guys? Doug?
Right.
Gator,
Yeah.
How was the verbal tongue lashing?
Oh.
I don't know how to take that. I was just trying to crack wise, and of course she wasn't having any of it. And then she later acknowledged that you use oils or whatever, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of what I was saying.
Listen, I just wanted to bring up the fact that I know that you guys brought up all of the four quarterbacks and when they were drafted.
Yeah.
And I think we all have a right to be jaded in this town when you got a guy like Matthew Stafford. And I believe that, and I actually think that the Lions are on the right track. And I'll tell you why. Because even though I think Caldwell pretty much took them as far as they could go, and I know that that's been mentioned before, but I think if they got their guy and they hire Matt Patricia, who I hope it is, I don't believe they're that far away. They may need a few pieces on. They may need a few pieces on defense to shore things up to help these guys out, but more so than that, I think the offensive line, they got to figure out a way to keep these guys healthy, throughout the year, because your health, injury status, man, that makes all the difference in the world. You need those guys in there, and you can't afford to be losing games like man games, I guess would be a good way to put it, because when you lose some of these guys on the offensive line, it makes a big difference.
If it's me, Paul, I think it's time to make a bold move. I think the Lions are close enough that if I were in Bob Quinn's shoes, I would try and see if I could somehow get Saquon Barkley. Barkley in this draft. And that would be, we talked about it yesterday a little bit because Mel Kiper came out with his mock draft and, what it would take to move up from 20 20-4 or 20-3. And you look at Atlanta did it for Julio Jones a few years ago, and they gave up 2 firsts, a second, and a fourth, I believe. 2 fourths.
Yeah, to go from 27 to 6.
I would do it.
You still need good run blockers, though.
That's the thing about this, Paul, is I actually think that the Lions' offensive line might be just fine. It's a gamble. It's a gamble that they might be just fine. But I think there's too much evidence that these guys are actually better than they performed last year, and that injuries really played a role. And that's it's a risk on my part, but I just keep thinking about Saquon Barkley and $50 million in cap space used on defense, and I feel like you got yourself a ready-made winner.
See, they've got the right pieces in place. I mean, they've got a really good long-distance receiver and Galladay. You know, I mean that makes a. You know, if you look at the teams that are in the championship game, every team has somebody like that. And not only that, we've got Golden Tate, which is, you know, a good guy underneath. You know, I mean, what made New England that popular for that many years, you know, having a guy like that, you know, in their roster that they could go to, somebody that Brady could check down to whenever he needed to. We have all that. We have the weapons. It's just, I think more so than anything, they need help on defense.
I would just put it.
Stop people from scoring.
I just think they're closer than people realize, and they're not. I'm not predicting Super Bowl or anything, but I think they're close enough where it makes sense to get bold. 248-539-9797. Chris in Detroit, you're next. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, man, I was just giving you guys a call because I was there when that bad beat hit.
You were there at Motor City Casino. Hey, just real quick, Chris, so people understand what we're talking about. The Bad Beat Jackpot over at Motor City Casino last week. A bad beat is when you lose, when you're playing poker and you got 4 of a kind and you lose to somebody with 4 of a kind, you get the Bad Beat Jackpot, which had grown to over $1 million. A lot of casinos have this. It was the highest in the country.
Right, exactly.
And you were there.
I was there when it hit. And I was actually on table 6, and it hit on table 9.
Yeah.
And the story that I wanted to call and tell you guys about is I was at the table that I was playing at, and I had just busted out, meaning that, you know, I had went all in and lost a hand. Now, there was a guy that was standing there that had been sent to the table because they thought there was a spot at my table, but there actually wasn't one. But since I had just busted out, the guy was going to sit in my seat. But I, at that time, was getting ready to get up and go home, but I said, well, no, I'll go and rebuy, right? So I go back and rebuy, so the guy didn't get my seat.
So you bought back in.
Right. I bought back in. So the guy was a little bit upset about it. He goes back up to the front. They tell him to go to the round-by-round table, which is Texas Hold'em and then Omaha. They play around the Texas Hold'em, then they play around the Omaha. They only have one of those tables there at Motor City that they usually play that game at, right? So the guy, he wasn't too happy about going to play at this other table. And that guy sat down, and that first hand, that's the guy that won, that you were talking about earlier. It was him.
Wow. Interesting.
That hit the bad beat. That was a part of it. And the thing is that, you know, of course, the cards can change at any time. So the fact that he sat down there at that time, and it was 6-handed, that allowed the bad beat to hit. And he sat down there for one hand.
Wow. So how loud was it when that happened?
Well, one guy screams out, and then another guy screams out, and then they jump up, and they're just going crazy. So everybody knew what happened. And it's like you said, it was only a couple of regulars on that table, and I'm considered a regular. And, you know, it's like being punched in the gut. You're right there, man. Right there.
You've been investing in this for a long time.
So, right, yeah. It's like 12 tables, and you basically, I had a 1 in 12 chance of hitting it. So
did anybody like buy drinks for the whole room or anything like that?
No, they didn't buy drinks for the whole room, man. I was kind of disappointed.
That's weak. That sounds weak.